Hello everyone, you're watching New World News, and on this installment I'd like to tackle one of the great issues facing us at this current time: collectivism. Collectivism is an umbrella that encompasses racism, sexism, and numerous forms of discrimination. Whenever you take groups and collectivize them, you are foregoing their individual experiences, their feelings, and everything else, and choosing to deal with them as a bulk group. There's nothing more un-American than this. America was founded on individual liberties. That means I can be as dumb as I want to be, and I should be free to do so. I can be as smart as I would like to be, and I am free to do so. And I am not allowed to henpeck the next person and tell them that they should adopt to my ideology because I am right and superior than them. I should just be able to turn away and say to each their own. This has no longer become acceptable amongst the political left, though. They have become a death cult, demanding that dissent be stifled and that they have safe spaces and echo chambers. We need to ask ourselves how this has happened. People say all the time that racism is taught, that children are not born innately racist. Well, I can tell you one thing. White parents are not sitting down their children and telling them, you better watch out for brown people. As well, I would like to assume that brown people are not sitting down their children and saying, hey, you better watch out for whitey. That, in and of itself, would be racist and teaching racism. But I can tell you where we are collectivized and taught to see each other different. Through the government, in the government schools. Anytime the government has you put yourself in a box that says Caucasian, Hispanic, African American, Native American, the census, anytime they are collecting this data from you, they are asking you to define yourself by their parameters. I've told people all the time, if you want to stop police profiling, stop filling out your census. The census is collected, the data is then given so that stats can be created from it, and that they can then use it to profile you. This is, again, us allowing this to happen. After the government has collectivized you and put you into their set box, then comes the government's indoctrination. You are then taught a form of history where it subscribes to these views, where white settlers came to America and raped and pillaged the Indians. You are told ridiculous ideas that white people gave blankets with smallpox to the Native Americans as some form of biological warfare when germ theory was hundreds of years away. This is unrealistic. This is no more than Native people coming to a new country and the people there did not have immunities to such illnesses. This is why vaccines are required to travel to certain countries, because of instances like this. But we do not go and say that someone going to vacation to a different country is bringing their illnesses with them to try to assault and kill a population. This also entails this pop culture history where people who don't know their own family lineages. I can speak for myself personally. I don't know what my great-grandfather did. I know my grandfather fought in World War II, and I have no knowledge of my father. But people who lacking this knowledge then adopt this pop culture worldview where they believe that some distant relative of theirs was a Kunta Kinte, or a Django, or a white oppressor, or a settler. Again, this is absolving individuality. This is collectivizing people and saying that if you are white, you must have been part of this. If you are black, you must have been part of this. I mean, it is so insane because it honestly speaks as if people didn't migrate to this country after slavery, say, or, that the Irish weren't indentured servants. That, again, is the left's little semantical games where there's a difference between slavery or being an indentured servant. I once saw a really good quote, actually, that said, when the sum of your income goes to housing and food, that is no longer an economic opportunity, but that is enslavement. And that is very much true. African Americans were enslaved. They were made to work against their will in a country that they did not willingly come to. But they were given houses and they were given food. Now, I think we can say that most modern Americans are living under those same circumstances. They go to work not because they want to, because they have to. Because they have to do something to get enough money to get food and shelter. This is no different. We are enslaved now. No one wants to talk about this, of course, because it's very disempowering. We would have to then do something about it. We would have to start to get responsible. We would have to start to take responsibility back. Of course, it seems a lot easier to have giant welfare programs from the government giving out food stamps and everything else, but in actuality, the government cannot create wealth. We are all born into poverty. You are born with nothing. If you are lucky, you have parents who have acquired wealth through work, through investments, through whatever. But we are all born poor. It is then our decision how we are going to acquire wealth, by what means, and how much of it. This is not racism. This is not institutional racism holding people down. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to sit here and rant off stats because no one's interested in it, but there were times where black unemployment under segregation, before segregation, after slavery, were much lower than they currently are now. And the fact of the matter is, there wasn't a giant bureaucracy going around saying they were going to do something about it. Black people did things about it. They started businesses. They invented things. They created things. That's all there is to it. The other thing that we should really start to dismantle is this idea of white privilege. White privilege is assumed that it means you will get a better education, a better job, and an easier path through life because you're white. By those same metrics, we can say that Asians have Asian privilege. Asians do far better in school. They get far better jobs. They're less likely to encounter violence. And most of them have immigrated here more recently. So, the moment you take Asians, which are a smaller minority, into this account, everything starts to unfold and fall apart. The other means in which that we can start to dismantle this concept of privilege is by actually comparing the Western world, the world we live in, against other societies. If we look at Africa and we see how they have come along and everything like that, yes, there are some great examples. Gaddafi was no cupcake, but he was doing good for his people. They had a good standard of living. He was nationalizing the oil and using the sales of the oil to build up his country. He built aqueducts. There was a much better way of living before we got there. But because Gaddafi didn't want to play by America's economic rules, we took him out. That, however, is a whole different discussion on foreign policy and the Western idea of spreading quote-unquote democracy, which is no more than spreading around leaders that will play by our rules. The thing we can look at, which will help to dismantle the idea of white privilege, is what the privileges of living in a Western civilization are. These privileges are roads, bridges, trash collection, indoor plumbing, and let's even go as far to say Wi-Fi, iPhones, the whole gamut, really. And these are things that people have obviously taken for granted so much that they do not even see that that's what really separates you from the rest of the world. India now has been doing better, and numerous people in India have said that colonialism has helped bring India up. It has helped uplift them because now you have these little women shopkeepers who can sit, they can make things, and then they can then sell them using an iPhone or another technological means. This is one of the other things that should be looked at, because another thing that coincides with this idea of deep-seated racism and people being oppressed is the idea of poverty. And in actuality, everyone is born into poverty. You are born with nothing. If you are lucky, your family has worked and they will have clothes to give you, shelter, and everything else like that. But you are not supposed to be born into luxuries. Everyone is born into poverty. The government, however, capitalizes on this and uses it as an excuse to redistribute wealth, which is basically theft. They are basically saying, we know what to do with your money better than you do. You're not generous enough, so we need to take it from you at gunpoint and give it to other people. And because we're telling you these other people are in a bad situation, you should feel good about us robbing you at gunpoint. One of the other things that will come up in debates with people who share this ideology, the social justice warriors who claim up and down that they are fighting against racism, sexism, and all the other numerous phobias in the world, you will talk to them, and I will tell them, you know, you need individuality, we need to respect that people have different experiences and everything like this. When I approach black friends with this standpoint, I'm told, don't you talk to your other black friends? As if being black then makes them all see the same. This is a black person being racist and collectivist towards other blacks. They are wearing on their sleeves the fact that they are in a cult, that they think that every person within whatever governmental box experiences life one way, and the person in the next box experiences something completely different. Nothing can be further from the truth. Everyone has different experiences. Everyone lives under different circumstances, and we need to accept and respect this. This is the only way for collectivism to stop. It starts with you. It doesn't start with the next person. It doesn't start by henpecking the next person and telling them that they have to see the world through your certain rose-shaded glasses. You need to look at the next person and say, I don't know why they think what they do, but they're allowed to do it because they are free to do it, because America was a free country. People are trying with all they can to end that, and these people will learn and see what it's like to live somewhere where everyone is treated equal. It was the Chinese communists who had the ideology that resulted in everyone receiving an equal share. Now, I think as Americans, through our experiences, we would understand that a brain surgeon should not receive the same pay as the janitor cleaning out the office. But that is where collectivism leads, to everyone with equality. Equality, as much as it feels like a nice word and a nice idea, is not realistic. This is, again, like children. I will say this over and over. Leftists are children. They want mommy and daddy to make things fair for them. They are lustful and envious and covet what the next person has and thinks if they bitch and moan and whine and cry about it enough that someone else will bring it to them, that they don't need to work for it, that they just need to complain for it. And this attitude needs to stop. People stop needing to, the tolerance of these childish attitudes need to stop. And it needs to be identified as childish. It needs to be identified as unrealistic. If anything, I could only wish that we could set up an area of the world for people with these ideologies to go so that they can experience this, because it does no more than show a dangerous sense of American exceptionalism. That people think you can go down the track that has led to Nazi Germany, the communist Chinese, all of these human rights horrors that have happened through history. Americans seem to think that we can head down that road, but because we're America, it won't end up in the same place. Well, let me be the first to tell you, if you go down that road, it only goes bad. And that's why this needs to stop. The notion that we can deal with people and the masses and this country in a collectivist manner will be the end of us.